Do admin panel training for the CHIIP BP study. I'm going to walk through how to use the admin panel and also point out a few things along the way. So the first thing I want to point out is the URL. This is not on production. This is our stage site, which is the same as testing. And whenever we're on a testing site, the URL has hh.tech.io in the URL. So in the future, when the study is up and running and is on production, it's live to participants, the URL will be slightly different. It'll be chiipbp.eurekaplatform.org. And so this is just something to point out along the way. This again is our testing admin panel, so feel free to click around, get used to it. That's exactly what this is for. So let's dive right in. Let's start with participants. So when you click on participants, you're going to see a lot of fake names, and that's just because we are doing a lot of testing, and so that's totally fine. So when you come to the admin panel and click on participants, this is where you can get an overview of all of the participants in the study. You can see their participant ID, which is synonymous with Eureka ID, the name of the person, their email address, and I'll come back to talk about this a little bit more in a second, their date of birth, if they're active, consented, when they've signed their consent, etc., if they're an admin. So you get a brief overview of everyone in the study. Now, just to point out a couple things about email address, you'll notice that there's a whole chunk of these people that all have eurekaplatform.org email addresses. And that's because CHIIP is a mobile app study. We actually don't collect email address during mobile registration. Instead, we collect phone number. And so our Eureka platform system assigns a bogus email address as a placeholder. We do have plans to collect email address during Eureka registration. That will probably be within the next month or two. And so once we make that change, an email address, even for mobile app participants, will show up here. But for now, don't even pay attention to this. It's essentially placeholder. Okay, so let's find a participant. Let's go with this person. Okay, so I clicked on the name, and the name pulls up the single participant view. This gives me a brief overview of the participant. And again, because CHIIP is a rather straightforward and simple study, there might be some extra things that some of our more complicated studies use. But anyway, when I click on the participant's name, I get their contact info, so we see that bogus email again, which is fine. And then we see their phone number that they registered with Eureka with. And then we see the e-consent. I can see when they approved it, and I could download a copy of that consent. And since it's only an e-consent, meaning they just tapped agree, essentially what downloads is a PDF, and then it has a timestamp of when this person, SSSD, signed the consent. So that's the basic info. Now if I go to activity, I'll see eVisit 1. I can see it opened on September 25th. And if I click General, which is the name of the section, it's going to give me a drop down of all of the activities within this eVisit. So these are the activities that we designed in the study flow diagram. So they should be, you should recognize them. Okay, so let's see. Welcome to the study. If they have a green check mark, that means they did it. They did the shipping address. There is a green check mark. Healthcare platform tracker. So somehow they were able to skip this. So what that means to me looking at this is that I know that the healthcare platform tracker, which is essentially asking people to connect their health kit, is iOS only. So what must have happened here is that our test user, one of our QA engineers, is testing on an Android device. And so as expected, this activity isn't available on Android. And so they didn't see it, and so they continued on. Have you received your Omron BP monitor? They answered that survey. And it looks like next step is creating their Omron account, and then so on. So clicking into the single participant view into activity and hitting the drop down gives you some insight to where this participant is in the study. Okay, next up, messages. So if a message has been sent to this participant, it will appear here. And hopefully I'll find an example of a sent message. So in this example, this person hasn't had any messages sent to them. And if we want to, we can see what messages are in the queue, meaning what messages is our system prepared to send once the timing is right. So I can click on messages in the queue, and it's going to pull up a page that has a lot of information, and some of it looks highly technical, so I'm going to point out the most important thing. So the most important thing is you can see the title of the message, message 1, and I'll show you in a second how to understand what that message is. And then you got this big chunk of text. But if you scroll over to the right, you can see the queued at, which this is the time that our system decided, or our system queued up the message. So perhaps this was registration or consent, whatever. But the most important thing is this to be sent at. So message 1, and I apologize that these should definitely be next to each other. Message 1, our system is prepared to send to be sent at September 27th at noon. Okay, so then another question is, well, we didn't see any messages sent to this participant. If you remember, the panel, the dashboard was empty of messages. So if I click logs, this is going to show me the times that our system attempted to send messages to this participant. So I click logs, and right here I can see that the conditions were not accomplished. So that means the criteria, the participant didn't fit the criteria, and so the message wasn't expected to be sent. So that is fine. We would have to further verify, we would need to see what exactly are the criteria for receiving message 1. So let's go ahead and click this hyperlink. Aha, so here's message 1. If you want to see the actual content of the message, you can click this template body. Okay, it's our standard message. And let's see, what are the conditions? It's when the eVisit 1 is not true. So if it's completed, it's not true. So that means it's open. Okay, I think our person definitely has eVisit 1 open. And then the survey shipping address. If that is not completed, then they should get message 1. Okay, let's go back. Let's look at our user. Let's see. Okay, well, they've already finished their shipping address activity, so that's expected. They should not get that message 1 reminder. You're welcome to dig more into that. I actually encourage it. Become familiar with what could appear here and how to tell if something was properly sent. You could do that again. So message 1, we don't really expect to ever send, but message 2, maybe, oh, look, it's supposed to be sent on, it was supposed to be sent on October 2nd. So you can go in here and see what happened. Undefined Twilio info. So this is probably a product of testing. This is telling me that the phone number that is associated with this account might not be real, which is definitely true. We probably wouldn't see this error for real participants. So just a little background on how to check how messages are sending. Okay, so we've done basic activity, or basic info, we've done activity, we've looked at messages. Health data doesn't apply for CHIIP BP. We don't expect anything to show here. Notes, this is totally up to you if you want to enter notes about participants here. It's totally up to you as a study team how you want to use this area. We have some studies where coordinators, every time they give them a phone call, they enter notes here saying that they called. We have a bunch of studies that also choose not to use this area. Okay, pinned messages. So we do have a pinned message in CHIIP BP. If you remember, after someone connects their Omron device, we have a little blurb reminding them to use the Omron Connect app and take their blood pressure every day. So in pin messages, you can see what pin message is available to the user. Right now, it is not available, so that's what that X means. If I go back to activity and take a look, yeah, that's correct. So they haven't finished the connection to their online meter, and so once that activity is completed, we would expect the pin message to be there. If you want to see the actual text, you can click on the paragraph, and you'll notice that there's some coding involved there, and that's just so it renders correctly in the app. There's going to be an icon, cool, and then the actual message. So you can just come in here and see, you as a admin can see if the participant is able to see their pin message or not. Okay, so that is all from clicking on the participant's name. If I click on their ID instead, you get a panel where you can make some edits. I can see their first name and last name. And the most important thing here is the password reset. On the mobile app, a participant can go through a password reset flow on their own by sending a link to themselves, and it's a very standard flow. But if someone does need some extra help signing in, an admin can come in here, type in a new password, test, or whatever makes sense at the time, hit save, and that automatically updates the password, and the participant should be able to log in. Over here, the most important thing is test user. This is how we mark users as test. This excludes people from data reports and also doesn't send users messages, so like push messages or text messages. And so we'll use this when we're on production. We're on stage right now, but when we're on production, we'll probably create a handful of test users so that we can verify that everything is working as expected. And once we've done that, we want to exclude those people from any data sets, and so we'll come in here and mark test. Status. So everyone by default becomes active. If someone needs to withdraw from the study, a coordinator, whoever is managing the study, can come in here and click withdrawn and hit save. Inactive, that is also something that can be manually changed. So I don't really have a solid example of when someone would need to be inactive, but perhaps there is some situation where someone's not withdrawn, but they don't want to receive messages, etc. We can talk about that more if it needs to apply to CHIIP. And finally, the other status of finished. So this will be automatic once someone has finished the study. Their status has gone from active to finished. Okay, so that is the whole participants panel. I know I went through it rather quickly, but I encourage you to log on and click around and practice looking at all of the different pages.